Building walls, repelling aliens, and use of deadly force. We're not talking about the Trump administration's immigration policy. This is Earthfall. Earthfall is a 2018 online multiplayer co-op first-person sci-fi shooter. It was developed and published by the Seattle-based indie game studio Holospark. If you saw any of the run-up to the launch of this game, you saw Holospark talking about the game with passion. They really wore their heart on their sleeve. Any questions people had, they answered honestly. It was pretty refreshing. The guys were a little bit awkward, but they were earnest and they cared about their game and they cared about gamers. And they didn't try to put up a false facade, about what the game was inspired by, and that's Left 4 Dead. They said, we love Left 4 Dead. There is no sequel. We want to make kind of a sequel in spirit to Left 4 Dead. And what's funny is a lot of the criticism aimed at this game is because of that fact. They say, oh, it's Left 4 Dead, but with aliens. And yes, it is. It's Left 4 Dead with aliens. But Vermintide and Vermintide 2 is Left 4 Dead with rat people and zombie warriors. And Payday is Left 4 Dead with cops and robbers. So I think it's a little weird that those studios don't get the same criticisms as much, especially for the fact that there are much bigger studios and Holospark is just an indie studio. I mean, let's be honest, it's a linear, non-AAA budget title from an independent studio. When you say it that way, it doesn't sound too appetizing. But before you make that conclusion, hear me out. So this is a post-apocalyptic game that takes place after a meteor shower brought a bunch of aliens to Earth. Now, all of humanity that has survived has kind of banded together to form this rebel group who want to take out these aliens and try to reclaim Earth. So can you and your crew save humanity, or will you die trying and leave the Earth to the aliens? So as you guys know, when I talk about games, I talk about the good, the bad, then I give it my score. That being said, let's get into some Earthfall goodness. Right off the bat, one of the things that I really love about this game is the fact that it is a level-based game. It's not open world. You're not going to have to spend 100 hours doing a bunch of busy work. It's point A to point B. They give you a task. You have to go do it. You just got to get there, survive, and then get out. Something else that Holospark did with this game that I think is really cool and not a lot of companies are doing anymore is the fact that all of the updates, all the content released post-launch are free to players who own the game, as it should be and used to be. The last time I saw this happen was Respawn Entertainment with Titanfall 2. I also enjoy the fact that Holospark are listening to players and actively improving the game while adding new features. There are 3 ways to play the game. You can play it offline with bots, you can play it online with friends, and in a horde mode called Invasion, which is also available to be played offline by yourself with bots. Whenever I play these types of games, I always try to play on a single player mode or multiplayer mode using only bots. That way, when I jump in with real players, experienced players, they don't look at me like I'm an idiot, and they don't rush through and I don't miss things. I think it's really cool, and this game allows you to do that. Now, when you play with other people, especially those who have their microphones on, it's great co-op fun, and you'll only find this in a few other titles like Vermintide, Vermintide 2, Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2. Communication and teamwork just makes the game much more enjoyable, and you can actually ratchet up the difficulty level if you'd like. Speaking of Left 4 Dead, they've taken that formula and they've improved upon it. You got the same great co-op gameplay coupled with a race to get from point A to point B, but this time you can aim down your sights. You have multiple grenade types. You have barriers that you can put up which create on-the-go strongholds that can protect you from invading hordes. You have heavy weapons to bolster your already pretty decent arsenal. You can combine things with barriers to create flaming or electrified barriers. So if you take like a propane tank and put it into a barrier, it becomes a flaming barrier. If you put an electric grenade, an arc grenade into a barrier, it becomes an electric fence, which not only keeps them out, but also electrocutes them. Another thing that I thought was pretty cool was the addition of 3D printers. So even if you're on the go, maybe there's a gun that you have that's not the best, or there's one that you prefer, when you go to the 3D printers, it might have it. So you just hit that button. It takes a second for it to print up, so you have to defend yourself while it's printing. Then you grab that gun and then you can go through and just start killing. And if you need to, you can actually use 3D printers as a bit of an ammo supply. So you already have the gun you wanted, but you go up, you print that gun again, and then you take the new one out and you've got full ammo again. It's pretty cool. In addition to all that, there are traps that you can arm that actually help lock places down even further in invasion mode. Plus, you can upgrade your characters in invasion mode, their stamina, their defense, their attacks, and they give you some abilities that you don't actually have in the single player game. So not only is invasion kind of like a better horde mode than what you would normally get, it gives you some variety that you don't get from the other game mode. I guess the best way to describe invasion mode is it's a vastly improved Black Ops Zombies. Why do I think it's improved? Because you actually have set goals. There's 20 waves to survive. Now, whether you are in invasion mode or in the pretty cool multiplayer mode, you have 10 alien types. There's the light drone, the heavy drone, the thresher, the sapper, the whiplash, the blackout, the beast, the enrager, and the enraged light drone and the enraged heavy drone. A bunch of them come at you at once, and they're flanking you, and they're coming at you en masse. It can be really exciting, really tense, and it's really where the game finds its footing. Now, I didn't play the initial release. I didn't play the beta. I played the updated version, which is remarkably bug-free, to be honest. I haven't had any bugs the entire time. I haven't had any clipping. I haven't been stuck in anything. I haven't had the game crash the entire time. So this is a really solid game when it comes to lack of glitches. It's great. The bots are pretty good. They're serviceable AI partners who can do things like shoot aliens and pick you up when you're down. And I was able to get through the first 2 skill levels most of the time using just bots as teammates. Something that's kind of a nice touch is there's a lot of unlockable lore, different backstories that you can find throughout the game. They're pretty funny, they're informative, and you can definitely tell that a lot of care went into the writing of this different lore. I think it's a nice addition. They didn't have to do it, but I think it's really cool. Now, when it comes to said missions, you've got a really nice variety. You've got quiet sunlit suburbs. You've got a nighttime rain-drenched junkyard. You've got an underground military bunker. You've got a stormy trailer park. You've got a pitch-black train yard. You have a snow-covered town square. You have a booby-trapped warehouse and research lab. You have an alien-infested dam. There's an overgrown industrial complex. And then, of course, you have the final really atmospheric mine, which has been turned into the alien stronghold. One of the things you're going to notice as you're running around these maps is the newly remastered audio. They actually had the audio redone by Formosa Interactive. This is the same audio studio behind John Wick, Deadpool 2, and a bunch of other movies. They definitely know what they're doing, and you can hear it in the game. And like I said, blasting through levels with a group of friends or randoms that communicate well is one of the best co-op experiences I've had since the game that inspired it, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Even cooler is the fact that Holospark went ahead and provided a progression system for while you're playing the game. So it's not like Left 4 Dead where you just play it and you come back and you play the same level. It's fun, but you don't get anything long term. Where in this game, you can unlock new weapon and player skins as well as weapon charms. So a lot of the stuff that people really love playing Rainbow Six Siege for, you get here. So you get those little charms that hang off the side of your gun. You can make your guns look really cool. Instead of having the standard character, you have a character who has different outfits. Some of them really cool, some of them just really weird. There's also unlockable character skills, which can be earned by achieving certain benchmarks, like healing 250 teammates or killing a specified number of aliens with different weapon types. I think that's a really nice touch, and it definitely keeps you coming back to play more. So you have the great gameplay, but then you have all this cool progression stuff that really makes it worth your while. Now, the game uses the Unreal 4 engine, which has some nice lighting and reflective elements here and there on the weapons, the water, and different surfaces along the map. And the weapon models themselves look really great. They look really good. Speaking of the weapon designs, they're a really nice mixture of, futuristic and practical modern day stuff. So you might have an MP5, or a Desert Eagle, but they've added different elements to them to give them more of a near future vibe. And I think that just makes it a little more fun when you're shooting them. And you will most definitely be doing a lot of shooting in this game, so that's important. There are super intense encounters in this game, especially when you get to these higher skill levels. I had to play on easy or normal with the bots because they couldn't handle the amount of aliens, especially when they throw in these really cool combinations of specials and drones and the enrager. So firefights can be pretty fun. They don't get stale and they have a lot of tension to them. When it comes to the actual players themselves, the 4 different characters in the game, the banter between the 4 of them is alright. It's definitely not as good as Left 4 Dead or Vermintide, but it's serviceable. Some of the levels and set pieces are genuinely fun, unique, and interesting. There's one where you have to ride this train with a big cannon on the back and you're just blasting aliens as they try to come for you. The alien stronghold inside of the cave is pretty unique, especially when you're trying to deploy these drills to drill down into the earth to help you defeat it. There's some really cool stuff here, and you can tell they put some thought into the levels. And unlike, say, Vermintide 2, not all the levels on here take you forever to do. Some of them are pretty quick and pretty punchy, but there's a lot of encounters on those shorter levels. So even though they're shorter, they're more intense. So that's some stuff that I really enjoyed about the game, but let's get into that Earthfall badness. When you start the game, you just get thrown into the mix. There's no cutscenes, there's no tutorials, there's no helpful first-time guide through the user interface or menu items. So you'll kind of roam around the menu trying to figure out what different things are, and then you'll realize that almost nothing can be unlocked or moved or used until you've played a bunch of games. So really the best thing to do when you start is just start a match. Once you do start a match, you're going to notice that the 4 playable characters are pretty low res, and some of them look freakishly weird, like Maya with her long giraffe neck and NBA player arms on her normal sized body. The characters are just downright ugly, to be honest. I mean, they look weird, they look dumb. Now, once you've selected your weird-looking characters and you start the level, you're going to notice a lot of graphical pop-in. It's really just constant. Given the fact that this is using the Unreal 4 engine and it's not a huge open world, that shouldn't really be happening. And even after most of the textures have populated the area of the level that you're in, they look pretty bland. There's some low-res textures. The colors are really muted. It can be kind of an ugly game. Your AI partners, the bots, are dumb as a fucking box of rocks. They will run outside of a barricaded room, so you have this room set up with all these great booby traps, guns, and ammo. Like, there's no way they're gonna get in and hurt you guys. And then your AI partner just decides to run out and fight. So now they're down, you're gonna have to get out there, get them up, or they end up dying. You know, it's a real pain in the butt. Even worse is the fact that they'll shoot a sapper in a tiny enclosed room instead of, bumping it back out of the room with a melee hit. They'll just shoot it right there. And then all 4 of you are trapped in those gases and chemicals because you can't get through all the aliens who are pouring through the door. It sucks. And then again, you have to start the whole level over. Sometimes from the very end of the level all the way back to the start. And that's really frustrating. And say by some miracle you get downed and the bots don't. Don't hold your breath for them to come revive you, because sometimes they will run right by you. They'll keep running over the top of you and not pick you up. And then they all end up getting hit and everybody dies and you start the level over. I think this is one of the most frustrating parts of the game. And you better get used to playing with the bots, because the player count on this game isn't super high. When you're hosting an online match, especially if you're trying to start the campaign from the beginning, you will just sit there. You won't get any players. It's really frustrating. And then the game populates the bots in their place. And eventually somebody will jump in. There were a few times where I had 3 other players with me, but more often than not, I usually only had 1 or 2 players, sometimes no players. When I said I want to play with a bunch of people, it didn't happen. Some of the unlocks and the skills will take a long time to achieve, especially with the limited player base. You may not want to stick around long enough to earn these things. You're just like, okay, I can't keep playing this over and over just to get to these unlocks, especially when I'm playing with bots. Now, I love the tension and the amount of enemies on the higher skill levels, but all it takes is one mechanically weak or dumb human teammate, and it means a loss for everybody because of a stupid mistake they made. Now, there are 10 missions, which is a decent amount, but they can get a bit derivative sometimes. And you better get used to seeing "this will attract a horde" before completing any task, no matter how small or quiet it actually is. So when you go to boot up a laptop, it'll say "this will attract a horde." Really? Putting on a computer is going to attract a horde, especially when it even doesn't make any sound? One of the things that Holospark did that I thought was a very wrong decision was making the game T for teen. They went for that mass audience, which they were never going to get, because this game type is specifically made for people who like Left 4 Dead, who like these co-op shooters. Anybody who doesn't like them isn't going to buy the game, and most of the people who do like these type of games are used to rated M. They're used to language, they're used to gore and explosions and violence, and a bit more of a mature experience, especially when you look at Left 4 Dead 2 or Vermintide 2. When you look at stuff like Logan and Deadpool, it should show you that there is a market for mature content. So don't dumb it down trying to get more money. It's a really dumb decision. Now, enough about that. One of the things that I noticed about the levels is the randomization for weapon drops. A lot of times, certain guns are always going to be in certain places, and I don't really like that. I would like to have seen a variety. The guns in different spots or different guns from different playthroughs instead of being so predictable. The music, for the most part, is very hit or miss. There's a few good tunes that you'll really like hearing when they play, but most of the music in the game is pretty forgettable or just downright distracting. The special aliens, which are a highlight of the game when it comes to gameplay themselves and fighting them and how they look and everything else, the models are pretty nice. They really need work on the audio. You have almost no audio cues from these specials, and there aren't really any ongoing audio cues for them, so if you can't find it yet and they're running around the map, you're not going to know where they are or hear them or anything most of the time, and that can be really frustrating. And improving the directional audio would obviously help with that. The directional audio in the game is just garbage. Everything sounds like it's right around the corner, right, like it's right next to you, and it shouldn't be that way. A lot of people who are so used to open world games might get put off by the linear nature of the missions. It's going to really bother them. But I, for one, and a lot of other people that I played with loved it because it reminds you of like old school side scrollers where you learn the missions, the patterns, and you get rewarded by knowing what's where, how it might behave, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it'll still surprise you. The animations could definitely use a lot more smoothing out. Some of them are really rigid, especially, when you shoot the aliens themselves. Like the limbs will just fall off and they just kind of fall down into a lump on the ground. There's no like different things. Like if you shoot one in this way, it spins around, or if you shoot one in the leg, it trips up a certain way. It's just you shoot them, they fall to pieces, and they land on the ground. It's kind of boring. Now, it sounds like I'm giving this game a lot of bads, and there are a lot of things that can be improved. But something that I want to say is that reviewers have been especially harsh on this game. Of course, I didn't play the game at launch. I played it recently after the big update when they did all of the progression and the unlocks and all this other cool stuff. So the version I played was better than the version that the people who bought the game at launch or in early access played. Either way, though, this is a solid shooter by a dedicated indie team that is trying hard and keeping gamers in mind. I always hear people complain about the lack of mid-market games that don't cost too much but that are of good quality like we used to get all the time, especially on consoles. And then when they get a nice budget game like this, or Lawbreakers, or Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, they don't buy the game. So you can't really complain about it if when it actually happens you turn around and not support what you had to say, or these studios that are trying hard to do something good for a budget price. After all, you can get this game for $10 to $30 depending on what platform you're buying it on, if you buy it on sale or whatever. I paid $19.75 or something like that on Xbox Live for this game. Right now, at the time of recording, you can get this game for $10 on Steam. Seriously, $10 to $20 for this game? Pretty good deal. Not only that, you're supporting a good developer who's working hard, trying to put something good out there for gamers and keeping us in mind. I mean, after all the content that they're releasing from the time that they launched it until they decide to not put stuff out is free for everyone who owns the game. And when you think about it, for that low price, you're getting pretty good gunplay and you're getting really solid co-op gameplay. So what's not to love? When you think about Earthfall, to me, you have to think about that really cool ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that you had. Sure, they weren't great looking, they had some issues, but they were really great in the sack and they were fun to hang out with. And that's what you get with Earthfall. So that being said, what's my score? Drum roll, please. 6 out of 10.